But, you know, it's, yeah. At any rate, so, for those of you just tuning in, I am currently reading through manuscript. I'm on chapter 21, so if you're just tuning in, you haven't heard anything from me before, you'll probably want to go back and watch my previous broadcasts, because those will have the beginning of the story. Right now, we're getting towards the end now, so please feel free, sit back, and I'll start off with chapter 21. Just give me 1 minute here. And it's chapter 21 of The Sword and the Rose. Tostig was startled to see the Baron trotting into the camp, a faraway look on his face. He grabbed for his axe, looking around to see who would be following the Lord. "Haul him off his horse!" shouted Slalvan Hengst. "Quickly, don't worry, he won't hurt you." Manic was there quickly, pulling the Baron down with a thump and falling on him with a dagger out. "Stop!" Hengst's voice seemed to cause them all to pause, and Tostig wasn't altogether sure that it was the only command and not some spell work. "Don't hurt him, I have uses for him." Manic stood up from the Baron's apparently unconscious form. "What you be wanting with him?" demanded Tostig. Hengst turned a sly glance his way. "Ah, I lost much back there, including precious knowledge of what makes up the human body, how it works, and so on. It's only fair that this Baron should help me recover some of what was lost." "You be meanin'?" "He will serve me as did that peasant. He, however, will be alive and aware at all times, knowing just what it is being done to him. A fitting punishment, I think. But there are a few plants that must gather to make the proper charm for one living, as opposed to one no longer living. Please do not go far from the camp while I am gone." He smiled wickedly. Last night, Sajan, one of the bandits, had attempted to slip away while everyone was sleeping. The first they knew of it was a loud shriek, and when they scrambled to their feet, weapons in hand, they found Sajan lying dead, his face twisted as though he'd seen something fearful. Slalvan Hengst had not even stirred in his sleep, but the message was clear to the bandits. "Yes, we'll be here, and what'll he be doing when all his men comes looking around for the Baron? You been thinking of that?" But Hengst was truly mad now, and they were all caught up in his madness. All that could be done was to wait for whatever chance they might spy. He wandered over to Manic. "You be hearing that, man?" "I be. And a right good notion, too, I think. One of them dars getting bit one of what he deserves. Let him be pushed here and there without never a say in the matter." It occurred to Tostig that Manic was only a step or two less insane than the wizard. "Father's boots and breeches, what do I be doing now?" Forraith rode behind Melgathop through the brush. There was no telling just why Melgathop took this trail rather than that, but he seemed to be following something, whether it was a scent or just a feeling. After some time riding, they came upon Jadal, who was in some distress. Seeing them, the boy cried out, "Lord Melgathop, the Baron's gone riding off. I couldn't keep up with him. I've been trying to follow him, but it's hard." Melgathop nodded. "Magic in the air. I cannot say for certain if there's something in the magic called him to come out, but for certain some serious trap is there, and the smell of magic is stronger if we go this way. Come on, then." Tostig watched the wizard making his preparations and came to a decision. Standing, he tightened his grip on the axe. He had just taken his first step when he came up against Manic, facing him, blocking his way. "Come on, man, no one being deserving this." "No, but he ain't no human being, Toss. He be a dar. He be one of them, Toss." Manic quieted a bit. "You know, Toss, we've been having words before. This time you push it. We be having more than words." Tostig looked him in the eyes. So that be the way of it, then, man. He shrugged and began to turn away, as though backing down. Then he whirled back suddenly, swinging his axe up in the back with a backhand blow that caught Manic under the ribs, smashing him bodily backward. Tostig then set his feet and flung his axe straight into the broad back of the old wizard. He doubted if he'd dare try that a while ago when the old stinker was more sane, but Hansch was concentrating on weaving his spells around the Baron. The axe hit. Hansch's back arched, his arms flew wide, and the power coruscated around him. Tostig automatically flung up an arm across his face, but it was all over in a moment. Hansch had been driven forward to fall across the Baron's chest. Tostig went over, put a hand to the axe, and pulled it out of the wizard's back. The handle was warm to the touch, and the blade radiated heat. The blood on the blade was dried as he watched. He grimaced at that, then pulled the wizard's body off the Baron and looked down at the boy. The young Baron was lying there, still pale and still, but still breathing. A moment later, a hand twitched. Tostig nodded, then looked around. The other man with them was standing, but keeping his hands far from his weapons. Phallic, the one Hansch had put the spell on, was thrashing in spasms on the ground, and Tostig wondered if he would recover. The old bandit chief took a deep breath. Choices and chances, Tostig, choices and chances. Oftentimes a war axe can untangle a knot, but she bent a neat answer. Phallic suddenly quieted into deathly immobility. Will that be another dead one? Were he alive at all anymore? The Baron's eyes flew suddenly wide. He began to move, slowly, heavily, as though something was still holding him down. Maybe 'tweren't for nothing, then, muttered Tostig. He spoke to the Baron. Don't you be pushing yourself too hard, Baron. You look to be coming along all right. Gwalser's mouth then he croaked. You! His voice died off in an unintelligible whisper. Tostig went and got a water bag, then came back and held the boy up while he drank it. The Baron said to him, You're one of them. Tostig shrugged. Happen I were, I suppose. Some things I bean't be able to thole, though. You be feeling a bit better? You killed the wizard? I did that. Tostig's eye fell on Manic's corpse. I killed a friend for you too, Baron, though I don't suppose that be meaning much to you. All the same, I saw a lot and heard more, the Baron said. I'll see to it that you don't lose for this. Not more in my head anyway, I suppose. But Tostig was wondering whether he might be able to talk himself into some kind of a reward. 3 horses came galloping into the clearing. Tostig realized then how thoroughly he'd been involved in the situation. Other times he'd heard the horses long ago. The olive-skinned rider's expression didn't change, but the sword wind free from the scabbard. The Baron hauled himself in a series of jerks to his feet, still shaky, drew himself erect. Lok saya, Melga. No one here but friends. Friends, Lord? Seems a fatal gathering of friends. The Baron's face was pale, but he smiled. Yes, it's been serious fatal for some. I'll explain it, but first there's some things that need to be taken care of. Jadal, ride back and have some men sent out here to bury the bodies. While you're at it, have them send a couple spare horses as well. Yes, my Lord Baron. Gwalser turned back to the others. There was a trap laid somewhere along the trail, and I rode into it. He shook his head to clear it. I don't remember a thing, just suddenly I was here, tied up. The old wizard started saying spells over me, telling me times that he would have his vengeance on me, though he never did say what his vengeance was for. Tostig cleared his throat. 'Twere that wooden old man or his Yahor, he called it. 'Twere important to him. He studied in life, he said. How man were made, how their bodies worked, that sort of thing. I ain't altogether sure, but I was hoping we'd be able to learn how to make a human being. Gwalser nodded. He was muttering things of that sort about how he'd be able to learn from me, but I didn't know what he meant by that. Tostig nodded. 'Twere real important to him, and he'd have been at it for a long time. Those peasants we took, 2 of them escaped, and 1 of them were brought back dead. Before I could arrange to bury him, Hans should have taken them and were using them for his studies. He made a gesture toward one of the bodies. I'd be figuring you were using Valak that way too. Valak, he got drunk and took a swing at Yahor, and the spells on the wooden man knocked him cold. Then when he came to, Valak went off to the wizard himself, and Hans spelled him over and took charge of him. He sighed. We was using him, but he was using us too, right up to the end. I feared to try to do anything. Don't think I'd be daring to do anything if he hadn't been losing his mind and forgetting everything but his revenge. Or everything but his revenge. My Lord Baron, said Forsyth with extreme formality, may I speak to you privately for a moment? The 2 of them went a little way off, and the marshal spoke. Lord, will you not have us bind that bandit? No, he saved my life. Even so, Lord, do you know who he is? He's the head of that bunch who was in Lusmore. Gwalsor nodded. Yes, I know that, but he's owed something for the saving of my life. Or do you hold my life as having no value? He grinned. Not at all, Lord, Forsyth protested, but you won't be trusting him, surely. The man's no more than a brigand. But a brigand who saved my life. Walser's expression hardened. I'd say that earns him a bit of trust, whatever he may be or whatever he may have been. Selder's tears, Forsyth. I've spent all morning condemning men for things they've said or done thoughtlessly. Will you grudge me for the forgiving the one man because he's done a deed on my behalf? I don't be liking it at all, Lord. No, nor do I expect you to do so. But give him a little time before you leap on him with a sword bared. Can you do that much? Yes, I imagine so, answered Forsyth. His expression clearly Tostig had better mind his behavior. They rejoined the others. Gwalsor noticed that the other bandit was gone. Probably heard Malga and Forsyth coming, and without fear of the wizard to keep him, had slipped off into the brush. That was for the best, he figured. He could extend his forgiveness to Tostig, but he might have a harder time extending it to a man who had done nothing to deserve it. And Tostig might feel some kind of loyalty to a man who had served under him, sufficiently to make the whole situation a good deal more uncomfortable. After they had all stood around uneasily for a bit, Gwalsor spoke. Shall we go back toward the castle and meet my men on the way? That was agreed, and they all started out. Tostig walked beside Gwalsor, and as they went, he spoke quietly. The old one there? He don't be liking me a lot, do he? No, he doesn't, and he won't be the only one. Can you put up with that sort of thing for a while? I'd be expecting I could. You don't be thinking of making me a no knight with the iron suit and all that, do you? I hadn't thought much beyond keeping you alive, Tostig. Would you like to be a knight? Tostig shrugged. I be reckoning I could be well nigh whatever you be wanting. But you'll be knowing there be plenty of beyond our old fellow here be minding so long as I don't be hung. That they will. But Forsyth himself is common born, and under captain of the castle guard, whom I knighted and placed in that position because he showed ability. Tostig gave a short bark of laughter. And what ability be I showing, Lord, save the ability to fling an axe into a wizard's back, and at short range, too? Gwalsor grinned in return. You led a band of outlaws, made them a serious nuisance to me. If you can manage that sort of men, I'd say you could be quite useful to me. You heard there's been an uprising against me? No. Well, they took advantage of my being away in the swamp, and it was a close thing. But I'm left with some holdings to fill, and a few enough trusted and able men to fill them. And you be wanting the like of me in one of them places, with likely people around as feeling that they be having a better claim? Lord, you be having an uprising next spring. Wellsor frowned. There is something to what you say, for certain. Suppose I keep you with me for a time, as one of my personal followers. In a year or two, we might change that. Or you might learn to like the iron suit. He grinned again. And so ends chapter 21. That was another short chapter today. And I butchered it badly because it's a Wednesday, or just because. Anyway, I will talk to you again tomorrow. Have a good night. And yeah, I will see you soon.